Because they have.
Joel, fucking get up! Please stop! Please don't do that. Joel, please get up! No!
So that's the perfect way to start this video. Hello everyone, welcome to another video. Today I'm just going to do my Last of Us 2 spoiler thoughts, and as I said, that right there is just the perfect way to start this video because that's the big thing that everyone's talking about in this game. So for this video I'm just going to have, in the background in terms of footage, I'm just going to have, for like when I'm just talking about stuff in general, I'll have some just factions gameplay from the first Last of Us in the background, and then when I talk about specific scenes I'll put them up, I guess, because I didn't want to go back and record those scenes again. So I just went on YouTube and got some of those scenes because I didn't want to play through some of this game again, because some of it is really a chore because of how bad it is. So yeah, by the way, Naughty Dog, bring back factions please. If somehow a Naughty Dog employee chances on this video, please bring back factions for Last of Us Part 2. I mean, I know we're getting some sort of multiplayer, but that's besides the point. Anyway, let's get into some spoilers. So, the first big thing that happened in this game, as I said, the first half, in my non-spoiler review, I said the first half, I loved it for the most part. Like, it had, I wouldn't say I loved it, I really enjoyed it. It was good. It had interesting scenes. There was like a lot that I liked about it. But the first red flag that kind of scared me with this game, so before the game came out, everyone was saying that the game sucks. And this thing kind of scared me into thinking that it could be like that, which was Joel's death. Joel dies in the first 2 hours of this game, which that death was just, there was so much wrong with it. It was like, first of all, my main issue with it, like, I don't want to say I don't care that Joel died, because obviously he's one of my favourite video game characters of all time, and he was amazing in the first game, but I wouldn't have particularly minded Joel dying in this game if his death made more sense, and if it felt like it was for more of a reason than just to kind of drive the story forward. And I don't know how to word it. The thing is, it felt like the circumstances surrounding Joel's death were just contrived to drive the story forward. That's probably the best way I could say it. And it happened so early on in the game that it was kind of a shock. So obviously, we've all seen the game. If you're watching this video, you've seen the game. If not, then I assume you don't care about spoilers. Clicking on a video called Last of Us 2 spoiler discussion. But yeah, Joel's death, as we saw in the game, he's just patrolling with Tommy, and then first of all, we don't even see Joel for we see Joel for the first 5 minutes of the game when he explains to Tommy what happened at the end of the first game, and then we don't see Joel for another hour, 2 hours ish. We just playing as Ellie, and we see Dina, and then we see that Ellie and Joel have somehow drifted apart. And then when we see Joel later, him and Tommy are running away from some infected, and they bump into Abby, who's a extremely important character in this story, for better or worse. In my opinion, for worse, but we'll get into that later. And then Joel goes, for some reason, I mean, they do say in the game, Joel and Tommy say that it's going to take them a while to ride back to Jackson on their horses, so Abby says, come with me, and Joel and Tommy just go with her because the plot requires it. So even though it doesn't seem like that's the sort of thing they realistically do based on their characters from the first game, they don't really, especially Joel, he doesn't trust anyone in the first game, so it kind of seems like he's just kind of changed. I mean, I know it has been people can make the case that it's been 5 years since the first game, so he's probably softened up a bit. Even then, I don't really buy that. I don't buy that Joel would just trust this random person he's never met before. And then when they even when they arrive at Abby's place, or the WLF place, they're Joel and Tommy's shaking hands with Mel, and they're just interacting with with Abby, and they're not in this most friendly way possible. Like Tommy's like, "I'm Tommy, this is my brother Joel. We have an outpost down there. If you want to come join us," it's like this isn't what these two would do, especially Joel. And then Joel gets his leg shot off and his head smashed in with a golf club, and that's the end of Joel. In when Ellie's 19, obviously not. Obviously we do see more of Joel in the game, but yeah, I didn't like that. I didn't like the way Joel died. It felt contrived. It didn't make any sense. It didn't make sense to me to do it that early on in the game. And later in the video I'll say how I would have fixed this game if they wanted to keep the same story. But I didn't think Joel's death was necessary this early in the story. I think they could have rearranged the story a bit. And as I said in the non-spoiler review, the story is a mess in my opinion, so I think rearranging it might have fixed things, and this is one of the things that they should have rearranged. I feel like they should have made Joel's death later in the game if they wanted to, and had it be in a more sensical way with his character. So that was the first thing I wanted to talk about. The second thing I wanted to talk about was after the scene where Joel dies, Tommy and Ellie talk to each other, and obviously they're talking about they're both obviously upset that Joel's dead, and then Ellie says to Tommy that I'm gonna go after them, and Tommy says don't, because we need a lot of people to do this kind of in a smart way, and he just the next day he just kind of just goes and just decides he's gonna go after them, even though it doesn't his but the day before he was saying that no, it's not safe to go on, you don't know how many people are there, but then he just kind of goes because again the plot requires it. A lot of this game relies on contrivances and things to just happen because it's convenient for the plot, which is kind of annoying, and especially in the second half of the game it kind of gets a little ridiculous. But the first half, as I said, I enjoyed a lot of it. Aside from stuff like Joel's death, and obviously the thing with Tommy changing his mind, the new characters I thought were pretty good in the first half. Dina was decent until the end of the game, with it kind of just went a bit off, but I'll get to that later. Jesse, he was a good character while he was around, because he wasn't around for very long. And yeah, I actually liked the new characters, and certain things they did with, for example, with flashback scenes I enjoyed. Just before I talk about the flashback scenes, I just wanted to say another big plot thing that happens is Dina is pregnant with Jesse's baby, obviously. So that's very important for the plot later, and I thought that was a somewhat interesting twist. I wasn't really expecting that, based on what we saw in the trailers. But I thought it was an interesting twist, and it was important for later on in the game. But then after that, the best thing, without a doubt, in my opinion, in the first half of the game, with the flashbacks with Joel and Ellie, they were just especially that museum one, though, they just done really well. Like the way they kind of developed the relationship between Joel and Ellie, and had it showed that they were basically now fully father and daughter. And it, even though obviously they're technically not, but he's basically adopted her and he's accepted her as his daughter now, and I really like that. I like that we got to see that, because that's the thing I came to this game for, and it satisfied me with stuff like that. But it was still kind of they kind of just came out of nowhere. I don't really care that they did, because I enjoyed them that much, which is kind of a testament to how good the flashback scenes were. Like that one, and there was the one where Joel and Ellie and Tommy, are sniping the infected, and then Joel and Ellie go, and then the bloater comes. I love both of those, both of those flashbacks with Joel and Ellie in the game. I thought they were really interesting. The problem with flashbacks is the over-reliance on them in the second half, but that's not anything to do with the scenes with Joel and Ellie. But yeah, the Joel and Ellie flashbacks are fantastic in my opinion, especially the first two mainly, because they kind of, I felt like the second one, with the bloater, that was kind of them developing, building up that they were kind of drift apart, because obviously they were disagreeing on certain things, and you could see them the tension kind of building up. But then after that, there was like the next flashback after that, I believe, as far as I remember, was just the flashback where Ellie just goes to the hospital and finds out, and then she just screams at Joel. I feel like Joel, the way they did treat Joel in this game, they kind of make him out to be a monster, which I didn't like at all. Because obviously when Ellie finds out the truth, she kind of says that I'm going to go back, I'm not going with you, and wed through, which kind of annoyed me because it was like you built this relationship up throughout the first game, and it was really compelling and interesting the way they did it in the first game, and especially in those flashbacks. I liked it too, so I don't see why they felt the need to kind of destroy that. I mean, I know that's like the kind of obvious reaction that she'd kind of have, that she'd be a bit distant from him for a while, because obviously he liked her, but he did it with reason, in my opinion, because he didn't want her to feel like she wasn't worth anything. He didn't want her to feel that way, so he lied to her, saying that there was no there was no vaccine, but you're still kind of important to me. That was what I felt like Joel was trying to do, and I guess Naughty Dog didn't interpret it that way. But that scene as well kind of started, and the scene before that with the bloater, even though I liked that scene, did start kind of by an issue of my game with the false advertising, I guess, is the best way to describe it. Because even though everyone can say, oh, they do this in movies all the time, and TV shows and games, where they kind of take things that are in trailers and they don't have them in the game show or movie. But I don't, not like this. Not like this. This game is like a whole other level, literally to the point where they have the cutscene in the release date trailer, I think, where Ellie says, "What are you doing here?" And then Joel says, "You thought I'd let you do this on your own." It's not even Joel who's there in the end; it's Jesse. So it was, and scenes where they had scenes in the trailer where they made Joel look old, and same with Ellie, and they made them look older, just to kind of fake that Joel was actually alive. And I feel like that's kind of scummy in a way, because I don't feel like they should have done that, because it kind of builds up expectations for players that they shouldn't have had, because obviously the game didn't actually end up being like that. And that was kind of annoying, and really kind of left a sour taste in my mouth in a way, because it was, I was getting excited to play with Joel and Ellie and see their interactions as they get older, and Joel's only in the flashback scenes, he's not there when Ellie's older, obviously. So that was another issue I took with the game, with the false advertising. There's some videos online, I'll show some now. Credit to the people who did this, but they kind of showed side by side, or not side by side, they showed the gameplay, or the trailers and the gameplay, and then you can see that they didn't obviously tell the truth, and to a certain extent, yeah, it is not even to a certain extent, I think it is false advertising. So they sold you on the idea that you would be seeing Joel and Ellie's relationship as they were older, but we didn't get that. We just got the kind of flashbacks, which were good. Don't get me wrong, I did really enjoy those, but it's kind of too few and far between and too out of nowhere, and I didn't like how they made it look like we were going to get them older, but it's just them in the past. So yeah, that's what I have to say on that. The next thing after that would be the kind of turning point in the game when Ellie and Abby face off in the theatre, and Abby, who killed Joel, by the way, let me just point that out, we switch to her, and we have to play as her for the whole second half of the game. Yay. Oh, God, that decision was so bad, in my opinion, because for multiple reasons. First of all, I don't think a good way to introduce that character was having her kill Joel, because obviously before that we don't really know anything about her. We plays her for a bit and run away from some infected, and then she kills Joel, and then that's all we see of her until later, where she just reappears in the theatre, and then we play the whole second half of the game with her playing through the events all over again from her perspective. But it was, I don't know, I didn't like it that much, because first of all, the characters in Abby's half weren't really developed. I mean, the only one I could say that was honestly developed was Owen, and maybe Abby a bit, but even then, the development they gave her kind of crumbles down in certain scenes. But yeah, Manny, I didn't really care about Manny. He was just kind of there. He was just there to be I guess just Abby's friend, and just help out with things so you could have a companion to go with you on certain missions. And then Mel was just annoying. I didn't like Mel at all, even though from a certain point of view she's like the least terrible person out of all of them, I guess. But then they're all kind of terrible people, which I guess that was the point of the game, to show that everyone in this universe is a terrible person, but including Joel apparently, which they justified his actions in the first game. But yeah, I didn't. That's a separate point to the Joel thing. But yeah, Abby's characters, I didn't really like any of them, to be honest. And Owen, I thought it was interesting at first, and I thought he was a bit likable. But then they have this weird scene, which I'm not going to show all of because I don't want that on my channel. You can go find it if you guys know. You guys who played the game know what I'm talking about. But yeah, this just weird out of nowhere scene. It's just kind of like, from that point on, I didn't care about Abby, Owen, any of these characters, because they were all just unlikable, making stupid decisions for some weird reason that had nothing to do, even especially that scene, that had nothing to do with the story. It just made Abby kind of come across as a completely unlikable character. But they tried to redeem that later, trying to redeem Abby's character when Lev and Yara introduced, who I thought they were fine enough characters. They weren't really that interesting, but they were okay. But the relationship between Lev and Abby, I feel like they tried to make another relationship between Joel and Ellie, but they didn't understand, like another kind of relationship like that, but they didn't understand what made that relationship so great. It was the development from like Joel saying in the first game, like, I don't care about this kid, I don't even want to do this, because at first Joel didn't even want to take her. Tess was the one who convinced him to do it. So and then it's like a nice thing to see in the first game when you go through the whole game, you see their relationship slowly build. Whereas with this, they have Lev and Yara introduced in the second half of this game, and they only have about a quarter of the game to build on that relationship. And it's just kind of like, yeah, this is nowhere near as compelling or interesting as they did with Joel and Ellie's relationship. So yeah, with Lev and Yara stuff, I thought it was fine, I guess. I mean, I didn't really find it all that compelling. They tried to redeem Abby's character through that, and that's the thing with this game in general to me. It feels like the whole game is just there to kind of prop up Abby, and which, like, I have more points about that later. But it feels like it's just trying to show that perspective matters, and all the characters you played as in the first game, they're terrible people because they did this, that, and the other, even though just the things that Abby does in this game and the way they portray her, she comes across as a worse and like more evil person than Joel and Ellie ever did. Because the thing with Ellie is, in this game especially, is she at least shows remorse when she does certain things. So, for example, when she kills Mel, when she stabs her and she sees that she's pregnant, she throws up and she's like distraught by it. Or when she kills I forgot the character's name, the lady she interrogates, and then she goes back and she's all shaken up over it. Like, those scenes kind of show vulnerability for Ellie, whereas with Abby, when Ellie says to her that Dina's pregnant at the end of the game when they're fighting and she's gonna kill her, Abby says good and she's just gonna kill her. It's like, why does Abby get to kind of be an emotionless robot? That's kind of completely unlikable to me. She has no limit. She just does whatever and just gets away with it. And to me, that's not a good character. She's not likable, first of all, and then you make her do that. It's like, why are you making this player this monster? Because at least with Joel, like, his reasoning behind things was justified. So, for example, like, when Joel killed, the people in the hospital, because they were gonna kill Ellie, that's, like, justified because he'd lost Sarah in the first game, and this is kind of developing that relationship. Not relationship, sorry. He's trying to, like, he didn't have a chance to save that relationship, should I say, between him and his daughter, because obviously his daughter was killed, so he wanted that second chance, and he got it, so he took it. Whereas with Abby, it feels like, even though, like, they're making Joel out to do a terrible thing, isn't the thing that Abby's doing kind of terrible as well, because she's just going after someone who's someone else's father and killing them. But Abby faces no repercussions for it, yet Joel dies. So it's kind of stuff like that just kind of annoys me with this game. But, the final act of the game, which was completely pointless and tacked on. Like, I think the final act, by the way, starts, for those of you, again, who for some reason are watching this that didn't play the game, starts with, Ellie and Dina on a farm, just kind of enjoying life. And I feel like that's where it should have ended. Obviously, Ellie and Abby kind of end things, not amicably, but they kind of go their separate ways and say, like, Abby says to him, if I ever see you again, I'll kill you. So then at least they're separate, and they both lost and gained things. Like, Abby obviously lost Mel and Owen, and lost like her dad, like that was way earlier in her life, obviously, but she lost things like that, but she still got Lev and like that relationship. So, and Ellie as well, she, by the end of the game, she's with Dina, and she has Jesse's baby with her. So they both, but she lost Joel, and that kind of makes it, to me, seem balanced in a way that they both lose things and don't, like, they don't completely lose, which obviously I don't mind, like, not endings that aren't happy, but this one just felt unsatisfying. But I'll get to that. Tommy asks her for help, asks Ellie for help, because he says that they've found Abby, and then it's revealed that Tommy can't walk properly anymore, because obviously we saw Abby shoot him in the, which it looked like she shot him in the head, but apparently he's alive and he just can't walk well anymore. So I guess that's it. And him and Maria have split up. And he says that they've spotted someone, a girl who's built like, I think he said built like an ox and has braided hair or something like that, with a kid with a scar across his cheek, which is obviously talking about Lev. And then Ellie says that she's not gonna go after Abby anymore, but then she gets PTSD when she's like cleaning the like a barn, and then drops something, and then it reminds her of Joel's death, and then she decides that she's going to go after them, after Abby again, which would have been fine if she killed Abby in the end, but we'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, she goes after Abby and leaves Dina, who Dina is obviously annoyed about it. To me, that maybe she could have been a little more sympathetic with it. I don't know if that's just me, but yeah, when she leaves, she goes after Abby. Abby, by the way, is like tied up for some reason with some like new group called the Rattlers. So when she goes there, Ellie cuts down Abby and says, "Fight me, or I'm gonna kill Lev," which didn't really seem like it was in. Like, that seemed a bit weird, like, why didn't you just kill her right there? If you went to kill her, I don't know what the point of that was. It's just so you could have a boss fight in the end of the game, I guess. But then she starts strangling Abby and trying to drown her, and then she sees Joel pop up, like, she has a flashback to Joel, and Abby faces no repercussions for anything she's done, gets away, goes to, I don't know, just live her life with Lev, I guess. Gets in a boat and goes away, whereas Ellie loses 2 fingers, bitten off by Abby, and she can't even play guitar anymore, which is the last thing she had left from Joel. So do you guys kind of see what I mean now about the thing that, like, all the characters from the first game lose, and the characters from the second game, well, not the characters from the second game, Abby more specifically, even though she does terrible things that could be considered as bad as half the things that the characters in the first game have supposedly done, even though they justify all those, but they don't really justify anything Abby does and portray her as a complete monster. But that's a separate point, apparently, according to them, because she just gets away with everything scot-free, whereas, I mean, I know you could say she lost Owen and Mel, but still, she still has something left. But by the end of the game, the characters from the first game have lost everything. I mean, Tommy can't even walk properly anymore. He's split up with Maria. He doesn't even think that Ellie's going to go after Abby. Joel's dead. Ellie's lost. Ellie just loses everything in this game. She loses both, well, not both, 2 of her fingers. She can't play guitar anymore. Dina and the baby leave Ellie by the end of the game. What else? She loses Joel, because obviously Joel's dead. She just loses everything. So it kind of felt like they were just kind of demonizing the characters of the first game, just to kind of drive home the point that, like, everyone is someone else's bad guy. Which, I don't know, that's just, it felt weird to me. Like, I didn't wait 7 years to see all the characters that I liked from the first game kind of demonized and just destroyed down, and I don't see how they can make a third one, unless it's a prequel, that would be interesting. But I don't see how they can make a third one based on this. But, and then when Ellie returns to the farmhouse and realizes she can't play guitar, she leaves the farmhouse and the game just ends. Like that. I mean, we did have a scene before that, obviously, where Joel and Ellie talk about, forgiveness, and the thing is, I understand why they did what they did with, Abby, but to me, where like, Ellie leaves her alive, but to me it was kind of like, why did we go through all of this just for the game to end with her not killing Abby? It kind of felt like, it felt like they just gave Abby a kind of get out of jail free card, just like, to put it that way, I guess that's the easiest way I could say it. And the game just ends, and it's like, the scene, I understand, like, the scene, obviously, Joel and Ellie talking, where Ellie says, I'm ready to start trying to forgive you, but I'm not, like, completely there yet. And then Joel says, that's fine. And obviously Joel dies shortly after that, so she didn't get a chance to forgive him. But her way of forgiving him, in a way, is by forgiving Abby and letting her go. But nah, that to me felt like that wouldn't have been, that wasn't, should I say, a satisfying ending in my opinion. I feel like Ellie should have killed Abby, because she's done a lot of wrong things as well, and it feels like she just kind of gets away with it while Joel dies and doesn't, like, all the people who cared for Joel also lose everything. So, yeah, I'd say that the story, the first half, as I said, I don't have too many issues with it, aside from, like, Joel's death and Tommy kind of changing his mind a bit, and a bit of the false advertising, but the second half again is where I have a lot of issues. That's what I've mainly been talking about. And I would say to fix the game, probably I would say go for the beginning of the game, have the scene where Abby and her dad kind of look at the zebra, have that be the introduction of the game. This isn't like a complete fix, but this is like how I do it if they wanted to keep the same story. Have that be the introduction to the game, up to the part where she sees her dad dead in the hospital and starts screaming, and then have it cut to The Last of Us Part 2, and then, like, the logo, and then cut to the scene where Joel and Tommy are riding their horses, and when they talk about what happened at the end of the first game, and then from there, just have, like, cut out most of the Abby stuff, because to me, I feel like that was just, a lot of it was pointless filler, and it just felt like it was there to try and make us sympathetic towards Abby's character, even though she does terrible things throughout the game and faces no repercussions for it. But then have, like, a bunch of, cut out a lot of that, replace it with stuff that builds on Ellie and Joel's relationship, so maybe show them from, like how in the first game, how they had the different seasons, maybe have different years, so have like a year after the first game, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and then 5 years, have that be towards the end of the game, and have the Joel die around then, and then have Ellie go after Abby and kill Abby, for killing Joel and doing the terrible things she did, and keep some of the Abby scenes, obviously, to develop that character a bit more. But, I feel like that would have been a more satisfying story than what they gave us. So, to summarize my thoughts, I guess the score I gave it in my first review was a testament to, in my opinion, to how good the gameplay and the graphics are, because those things are perfect. But the story was just the thing that I had a few issues with, and I couldn't, kind of get around, or wrap my head around is a good word, but kind of get into, should I say. That's probably the best way of putting it. But the second half disappointing, first half good, ending disappointing. Naughty Dog, please bring us Factions Part 2. If you make a Last of Us 3, please make it a prequel, like, set between certain events in this game and the first game. And, yeah, that's all I really have to say about the Last of Us Part 2's story. So, if any of you guys think I should, if I think I left anything out and should talk about it, just leave it in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you like this video. Be sure to like the video if you enjoyed it. Share it with your friends. Be sure to follow us on Instagram, link in the description. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.